It's time for our regular check-in on developments in the Asia-Pacific region. Today we're focusing on the Philippines. And in the last week, a prominent radio broadcaster was shot dead in Manila following the stabbing of another journalist in September.
That's right. Now, freedom of speech is a huge concern that human rights activists have flagged since President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. took office earlier in the year. Richard Haydarian of the Philippine Daily Enquirer says that the recent attacks has dented Marcos Jr.'s plans to reform the family name.
After the assassination, immediately the top officials under the Marcos administration came out saying the president has his concern and that there'll be a very high-level effort to make sure that the investigation with respect to the assassination and murder will go according to the rule of law and there'll be no politicization or dilution of the investigation. What does it tell you? It tells you that Marcos knows what a very disastrous this is for him, right? Because now the critics are coming out and saying, see, on the 100th day of Marcos Jr., we see the assassination of top media critic. And Marcos knows this is not good for him. And actually right now he's scrambling to find new press secretary, new spokesman, right? To do this very difficult double messaging that I've been talking about. One, dealing with the Marcos's legacy, and also two, dealing with the legacy from the Duterte era. Because I think it will, as much as, of course, Marcos Jr. is not a beacon of liberal democracy and rule of law, let's not forget that the impunity situation in the Philippines, this is very much carried over from what we had on 6 years of Duterte, right? The 6 years of Duterte, we had thousands of extrajudicial killings based on the reports we're getting. And to think that that will just go away immediately after we have a new president, that's wishful thinking. My sense is even if we had a liberal president in power, no, we would have been facing this kind of challenges, unfortunately, when it comes to impunity, social justice, and lack of rule of law. So I'm not trying to give a pass to Marcos Jr. I'm just emphasizing the kind of quandary that Marcos Jr. himself is finding, even if Marcos may want actually to push the Philippines in a better direction, not necessarily a liberal progressive direction, but at least some correction and moderation compared to what we had under 6 years of disruptive right-wing populism, polarized politics, violent populism under Duterte.
Richard, Reporters Without Borders is saying that at least 187 journalists have been killed in the past 35 years in the Philippines. Explain to us, why is it so dangerous to be a journalist in the country?
Well, so clearly impunity has been a problem ever since, right? This is not even only under Duterte. To be fair also to Duterte, there was a problem of impunity even before him. So in 2010, you had the Maguindanao massacre, whereby, dozens of individuals, including many journalists, were killed in Mindanao amid, warlord electoral competition, and it took almost a decade, before there was a kind of a more, kind of a legal closure to the matter, right? So this problem has been there, and this problem is a reflection of the fact that the Philippines never really established a robust, genuine democracy. So under the Marcos dictatorship, obviously, the institutions of the country completely suffered. The Philippines had roughly 20, 30 years after its independence to build robust democratic institutions. But that process was essentially seized, right? That process came to an abrupt halt when Marcos declared martial law. So for 20 years, the Philippines had complete institutional hemorrhaging. The problem was when Marcos was kicked out, elections returned, semi-competitive elections returned, but not institution building, right? And the corrupt, problematic state of journalism in the Philippines was not really fixed. So yes, the Philippines has among the best journalists in the world. We have award-winning journalists. I'm very proud of that. A lot of them are great friends of ours. We have a vocal journalists community. But the reality is that we also have many problematic individuals who pretend to be journalists. Corruption is a serious problem in journalism. Corporate interference in editorial decision is a serious problem. That's the reason why we had Rappler. That's the reason why Maria Ressa had to come up with a completely new approach to covering news in the Philippines, right? And of course, that didn't put her in essentially a safe position, and she's paying the price for that, right? So this is the problem. The Philippines has a very vocal, vibrant democracy, but it's also a very broken, fragile democracy. It has a very vocal, vibrant media, but there's also a lot of corruption, corporate interference, right? And clear environment of impunity whereby even good journalists may be forced to self-censor out of concern for their livelihood.
So if such corruption is so ingrained in the nation's infrastructure, what future do you see is there for, freedom of speech or journalism in the country? You don't think that perhaps Percy Lapis's murder might be a turning point?
But you see, the thing with Percy Lapid's assassination, right? With Percival Mabasa, Percy Lapid is his screen name, is that it happened in Metro Manila. So that's where it got really scary, because we were talking about a situation whereby even very high-profile journalists in Metro Manila are being targeted right now. And that's something that's quite new. That was not the case before, right? So if you look at it, even under Duterte, very high-profile journalists like Maria Ressa, what they got was legal harassment, you can call it, right? Or politically charged legal cases. But now we're talking about completely something else, right? Violent acts against journalists. And that's why President Marcos Jr. immediately realized what a horrible, public relations disasters that could be for the Philippines, at the very least, not to mention, of course, a personal tragedy and massive tragedy, and how this could rile up the journalistic community in the Philippines, right? What we have to be absolutely clear about is to see sincerity and commitment by any president, including Marcos Jr., to make sure that we get to the bottom of this, even if this may lead us to problematic, to kind of a rabbit hole, right? A political rabbit hole. But we have to push that forward. So I think this is a big test for Marcos Jr.
Richard Haydarian there speaking to me a little earlier.